Blog Talk Radio.
And good morning, everybody. I just hope everyone enjoyed that great intro music. That is the great Bret Hart, and I just want to welcome everyone into another live episode of Full Press Coverage Radio. I am your host. I am Ian Glendon. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Debate. And good morning, Mike.
Hello! Well, good morning, Ian. Yes, happy draft day 2 to everybody out there. Hope everyone enjoyed the first round last night. Ian and I will surely have plenty of recap, plenty of opinions, and plenty of information for you, and we'll bring it to you, and we're happy to do that on a Friday morning, this Friday morning, April 27th, 2018. Again, he is Ian, I am Mike. We are highly caffeinated. We are often opinionated, but your feedback here is always appreciated. And in keeping with our theme music this morning, Ian, I have a feeling that this show is going to be the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. So let's kick it off, my friend.
Oh, you're lucky I didn't have that line stowed away in the back because that was perfect. That was well said. So you're right. We are. This is the morning after the first round. Something that I know myself, you, and everyone who works over at FullPressCoverage.com has been talking about for what seems like months, years, millennial, perhaps. I don't know. It seems like we've just been back and forth. Who's going first? Who's going second? Who will the Patriots take? Who will make what trade? What mistake will get made? So we have the answer. So fortunately for us, we no longer have to no longer have to worry or wonder really. Obviously, we went through and did. We had the first round. Just Friday night, and then we kick off round 2 tonight at 7 o'clock, and that'll be round 3 as well. So without any further ado,
the Cleveland Browns are now on the clock.
As we all know that sound from our big mock draft that we did just the other day, the Cleveland Browns were on, and here was their first pick.
With the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
Quarterback, Oklahoma.
It is Baker Mayfield.
It is indeed. So, Mike, first off, right off the bat, what are your thoughts? Baker Mayfield going over Sam Darnold, because for the most part, it looks like, from a lot of the mock drafts and from what people are saying, Sam Darnold was the guy. And then the last couple of days, last 48 hours, Baker Mayfield's name really got connected with the Browns. What are your thoughts? Is this the right move for the Browns?
I don't necessarily disagree with the fit that Baker Mayfield has with the Cleveland Browns, but I don't know about the number one. To me, it's hard to view a Heisman Trophy winner from Oklahoma as an underdog. But, when you think about it, I mean, it's a remarkable story. I mean, he's a former walk-on. He's listed as 6'1", but, I think there's a little bit of, play in there when it comes up. He was just drafted, number 1 overall. I mean, time's only going to tell if the Browns made the right choice. But, I will say this, Mayfield's very accurate. when he throws in rhythm, he can be a very electrifying presence on the field. I think that I think Cleveland saw a quarterback whose skill set fits their design basically, and the new league tempo, spacing, spreading out defenses. Mayfield is going to be able to do a good job on that. I also think that they looked at Baker Mayfield as having maybe the swagger that's going to be needed to possibly turn the franchise around. You take a look at a lot of the guys that have gone in. I think the task of turning around a Cleveland Browns franchise that has been decimated by either poor luck, poor play, or just cellar dwelling for the last years. I don't even want to get into how many years, but I think that factored into this as well. My thought process was, if you're going to go for a guy like Baker Mayfield, I think he would have been there at the number 4 pick. If they chose to maybe go in a different direction, maybe take a Saquon Barkley, who really is the most dynamic player, or really shock everybody and go for a guy like Bradley Chubb, who was basically sitting out there, who many people have described as the best player in the draft, ends up going at number 5. But all in all, when you take a look back and you take a look at what Mayfield has kind of brought to the table, I think it's a decent pick for them. They're getting maligned. They did last night. They're still getting that, this morning. But to me, I think it wasn't so much choosing Baker Mayfield. I think it was the fact that they went all in and made him their number 1 guy. I think a lot of people were surprised that they made that decision based on the fact that probably he would have been there at number 4. I didn't see the Giants, making an effort to get him, and the Jets really had kind of moved more, I think, in the direction of maybe looking at someone like a Sam Darnold if that didn't work out. So, there's a lot of different things that could have happened, but they zeroed in on a guy. They made the choice, and only time's going to tell if it was the right one for them. But I think it's a good fit.
Oh, and keeping on the theme of the Browns, they obviously went exactly how everyone expected, and went Denzel Ward with the 4th overall pick, which everyone, I say that with a little bit of sarcasm and jest, because I don't think anyone had him, not at number 4. Maybe if they had the Browns, a lot of people figured that maybe the Browns would trade out of that 4th spot and move back a little bit, and still get one of these incredibly talented players on off or on defense. But they decided to stand pat at 4, and they took Denzel Ward. So now, they have their quarterback of the future. It might be the future as in a year from now, or it might be week 1. I mean, I know they said Tyrod Taylor was the starting quarterback, but. Right. You say that before you draft a guy that the fans, the franchise, everyone, needs to believe is the franchise guy. So, you're not going to, if he goes in and lights it up in training camp and plays well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see who's taking snaps under center, come week 1. Regardless, this team is 1-32 in their last 33 games. So something has to change. And so far this offseason, they've made a number of moves, leading up to this draft. And now, this is the time that they're getting their quarterback. And, you just hope that this isn't Brandon Weeden and Trent Richardson all over again. And I'm not saying that it's going to be, but, I'm sure as a Browns fans out there have that in the back of their mind, because, it wasn't too long ago that they had a chance and they looked at the future and saw, okay, we can get a quarterback and a running back, or a quarterback and a defensive guy for the next 15 years. And, we all know how that works out. I'm pretty sure Brandon Weeden is a 3rd-string quarterback for the Cowboys. Trent Richardson is, somewhere not playing in the NFL at least. So
yeah, I don't believe he's in the league anymore. Yeah.
No, I think I something tells me he had a stint up in Canada or the Arena League, or he was trying out or something like that. I could be wrong, but that's pretty much the last I heard of him. So I mean, that kind of shook up, the draft a little bit at the top. I mean, the 2nd and 3rd overall pick were pretty much on point, like you said. I mean, once Mayfield went 1st overall, I mean, there was really no doubt that the Jets would take Sam Darnold. I mean, the only doubt would probably be just the Jets doing a jet-like move and somehow screwing this up. But, to their credit, they took the player that they should have. I mean, not that it was that hard of a choice, so I don't want to give them too much credit. I mean, it's like, come on, it's like the Colts were handed Andrew Luck. You're going to take Andrew Luck first overall. You're not going to think about it, okay? It's not that great of a decision. It's just, it's there for you. So, the Jets, they take Darnold. The Giants go Barkley, which, a lot of people expected. You pair, incredibly talented running back with Eli Manning and a team that has the potential to win now. You talk about Odell Beckham Jr. being on that team as well. So it's the top of the draft shook out somewhat how we expected. Necessarily the first quarterback taken overall wasn't quite what a lot of people had. Not that it was too surprising because we heard a lot of things about Baker Mayfield. Like I said, the board pick was a bit surprising. The other thing too is so the Bills. I mentioned the mock draft that we did as a group just the other day, and you can find that on fullpresscoverage.com. You can find it on our radio page. You'll see a list of our previous podcasts. But we did a first-round mock draft with 5 of our editors, and the Bills in our draft actually traded up to the 4th overall pick to pick Josh Rosen. Something very similar happened yesterday, and they moved up to the 7th overall pick to pick Josh, but not Josh Rosen. They picked Josh Allen. And if you listen to Brandon Ray at all during our mock draft, who covers the Bills and runs the Bills page, he wasn't. If there was one quarterback he was the least sold on out of this group, it was Josh Rosen. And I actually got footage and an audio clip of his live reaction that he didn't want released, but I do have it. Why? I know last night when him and Parker went on to do the recap of the first round last night, he did a pretty good job of convincing himself that he was ready to accept Josh Allen as the franchise guy, but I feel like he needs a little bit more work in that section. So my question to you is, was that the right move? Was Josh Allen the right move? Should it have been Josh Rosen, or should it have been someone else, or was it a good trade for the Bills?
Well, I think it was a good trade for the Bills. I think it was a bad pick for the Bills. I'll be honest. As a matter of fact, one of the I put out on Twitter last night was, it's funny that you said, when you kind of put it that way and put, they picked not Josh Rosen but Josh Allen. I said, there's no truth to the rumor that somewhere there's a high-ranking official in Orchard Park running around going, "No, Rosen, not Allen." You misunderstood me. I really think that what they've done, and look, Josh Allen is a talent. I mean, there's no question about it, and I am certainly not taking away from anything that he's going to be able to do on the field. And is this a disastrous pick for the Buffalo Bills? Absolutely not. I think Rosen would have fit their scheme and fit their design a little bit better. But, Allen brings that swagger. Again, I think that there's a lot of this, and I think that played into the Mayfield pick as well. We're seeing a lot of new talent coming in that want to operate outside the NFL norm. I mean, you take a look at what Mayfield did last night, selection revealed on Instagram Live. I mean, this is the wave of the future, and you see a guy who's outspoken like Josh Allen coming into the Bills, maybe giving them that attitude that they've had a little bit this year, and you saw a lot of the players that kind of bought into that. He could end up definitely succeeding there, and I think Brandon is definitely convincing himself that this may not be the disastrous pick of that he initially believed it would be. But I do believe that Allen, I believe that Rosen would have been a better pick. I think he fit the mold a little bit better. I think there's a little bit more maturity on his end, not personally, but I think there's a little bit more maturity on from a football standpoint with his game as opposed to Josh Allen. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the Bills they're coming off of a big year for them. I mean, it's the first time they made the playoffs in a long time. There's a lot of optimism up north, and with due cause. But it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to be able to go in the direction that they want to go in, which is to challenge the Patriots for supremacy in the AFC East. I don't think picking Josh Allen this year puts them in. I don't think it leapfrogs them into that possibility of saying now they're going to be on. They're going to be on record. Now they're going to be on not record, but now they're going to be on target basically. Now we're going to have to go and we're going to have to really play our game in order to be able to beat the Bills. And I'm speaking from the Patriots standpoint. I think Rosen would have done a better job being able to do that right from the get-go. But you never know. I mean, if he has a great training camp, he could come out like a blockbuster. They do have A.J. McCarron on the depth chart, so I don't think it's a disastrous pick. I liked the idea of them trading up because I know they had targeted a quarterback. I just think they chose the wrong Josh, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I know, like I said, I know you share that same opinion with the guy who covers the Bills for us. So, I think you guys can bond over that. Although, like I said, last night he did do a little bit of backtracking, and he has kind of, started to convince himself. So I do want to give Brandon credit for that. And, just so everyone knows, that was not Brandon screaming on that clip. That was Nancy Kerrigan.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was either Nancy Kerrigan or Saints fans. I don't know. I haven't got a from my production.
Yeah, that could have been.
However, it could have been either or. And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards Saints fans because before we segue into the other Josh and where he ended up, I do want to touch on the Saints because I did kind of just bring him up there. And they made this big move to move up, and a lot of people expected a Lamar Jackson pick or an offensive pick or it's just not a project Marcus Davenport. It just seemed like the one of the first or one of the very clear cut missteps. Down the road this guy could turn out to be a great pick, whatever. But it just seems like it was the wrong place for this guy to go in this situation. Last year the Saints, they hauled in a whole bunch of rookies. I mean, you're talking Marshawn Lattimore and Alvin Kamara, so on and so forth. So, to be able to, maybe capitalize on another big first round, they moved from the 27th overall pick to the 14th overall pick. But in order to do that, they traded a first and a fifth round pick in 2018 and a 2019 first round pick to the Packers, which to get a guy like Davenport just doesn't seem like it's ultimately worth it, especially considering how deep this draft is when it comes to linebackers, defensive linemen, especially later on in the second, third, and fourth round. And the Saints just gave up a whole lot of draft capital to move up 12, 13 spots, and they didn't get their quarterback of the future, which a lot of people assumed that they were going to do when they made that move. So, I would reckon to say that this is probably the biggest. Oh, actually, I don't even know if I want to say that, but it's one of the top two or three questionable decisions, let's call them, of the first round. And I have a feeling you might agree with me, or at least have some sort similar thoughts.
No, I definitely do. I think we're in complete agreement on this. I think that the haul they gave up to draft Davenport was disproportionate. Now, again, neither one of us are we're not disparaging Marcus Davenport in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, this guy is a great talent, but when you take a look at how they had to jump up on the board to get him, trading from 27, I think it really is. I just think it's way too heavy of a price. You hit the nail on the head. 2019 first round pick, a 2018 fifth round, in addition to the to this pick as well. I think he's a great. Marcus Davenport has the ability to be a great pass rusher, but I think he's very raw at this point. That was a haul to reach up to get him. They must have really targeted him and really saw something in him that shows that he's going to be a fit for their organization for a number of years. But who knows? I think that I do end up thinking they gave up too much. But if he ends up really shoring up that defense and you see a huge impact from day one on Davenport, then it may end up being that they made the move that they felt they had to make to get a player that they did not want to see in any other uniform but a Saints uniform. And if that works out for them, all the best. But I just think it was too heavy of a price.
Yeah, it just seems like a guy like that would have probably been available at 27. So I mean, you're thinking about giving up that much. You're talking about future first round picks and future picks this draft. So time will tell. And that's the thing about the draft is like you really have no idea. I mean, you have a inkling, a feeling how maybe these things are going to go. In the past, you'll look at, well, whoever gets drafted by the Browns, well, their career's over. So perhaps that may be true for Baker Mayfield, and maybe he would have been better off going third overall to the to the Jets. I say that with a little bit of not too much seriousness, but you know what I mean. Like, I mean, it's just certain situations that shake out for certain players, and maybe the Saints come in and he joins right in and he buys into what they're preaching, and they take the next step, and they're perfectly fine with Davenport, and they don't lose sleep over it. But the fans, they're getting to a situation now where it's like you've had Drew Brees has been that quarterback for over a decade, and they've had one Super Bowl to show for it, and he usually doesn't. I'm not saying it's on him. I'm just saying, like, usually, at this point in players' careers that are of his stature or of his ilk and his accomplishment, usually that question always gets brought up. Like, well, why does, how does he only have one Super Bowl? The same has been said about Aaron Rodgers and, some other guys. How is this player, as good as he has, as historically great as he has been, only been to and won one Super Bowl? So, that's a good question, and this team is in a they surprised a lot of people last year, and I think they're in a more win now situation than they would have imagined they would have been a year ago from now. So with Breeze kind of winding down, you would think that maybe they would maybe attack offensively, pick a receiver, or wait and see who falls to him at 27, because it feels like an all-in move with just a pocket pair, to make a I guess a poker reference. You're going all in to try to make a move to win now, but it's not really a strong move. Trade in the house to move up to get a Roquan Smith or one of these really top defenders, best players in the draft type players. That makes sense, but I don't know. It kind of, I don't know. I'd be curious. I'd be frustrated if I was a Saints fan today.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think Saints fans are large in part just in looking at some of the reactions that I've seen on social media and some of the reaction for some of the guys that cover that team. That is the consensus, is that they like the player, but not at the level of capital that they had to give up to get him. And you're absolutely right. I think that he would have been a player that probably would have been there at 27. And it looks like right now they've given up a lot to secure a player that they wanted. But yeah, I think it just comes down to, I think they just paid too high a price for him. I don't want to disparage Davenport in the least, but I just think that was a real high price. And you did hit the nail on the head. I did want to just add a point, though. I thought we've gone back and forth with a lot of Packers fans, and the reason why that Aaron Rodgers has not won more than one Super Bowl is because I believe he plays every team by himself. Isn't that the consensus that seems to be in Wisconsin, that he basically takes the field every Sunday alone without any teammates around him? At least that's what I thought. That's what I was led to believe.
He doesn't have a defense. That's the thing. They go out and play, and when the offense goes on the field, it's 11 guys on the opposing team's offense and no one on defense. It's kind of like that special teams formation that the Colts tried to run that one time, just in the reverse, So
yeah.
And that's obviously that's why Aaron Rodgers, that's the difference between 7 Super Bowl appearances and 5 Super Bowl wins, So I'm glad you brought that up, because I had to, my friend. I knew that was going to bring a smile to your face, and that's what I'm all about on a Friday, helping my buddy have a good weekend. That's what I'm all about. Well, I always see now. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I always get a kick out of the if Aaron Rodgers had Bill Belichick, he would have won. It's like so for a fact that he would have won 5 or 4 more Super Bowls. I mean, come on, guys, come on, you don't even really believe that. It's just it's just frustrating. But that's for some midsummer afternoon discussion with some of my friends on Twitter, because I don't know if I have the energy to get my blood pressure up that high this early, so I'm trying to keep it a little low today.
Yeah.
So of course there's been a number of I guess surprises, and people do all these mock drafts, and I'm pretty sure not one person had 50% of this right, although we do want to throw a little bit of a kudos out to Parker Hurley, our Steelers managing editor, who nailed the Terrell Edmonds pick by the Steelers. So kudos to you, and that's one of the it's difficult once you get past that top end of the draft to really start projecting where these guys go, because you never know who's going to get picked, who's going to move up 14 spots to select Marcus Davenport, and who would have thought that the Raiders were going to take Colton Miller as high as they did? That's another one that
was a surprise.
We talked about him as a possibility for the Patriots, taking into account, I'm pretty sure at the time too, we're working with just a 31st overall pick, but we're also taking into account that if he comes to the Patriots, he's going to be working with Dante Scarnecchia. So whatever project, whatever work he needs, he's going to get the best guidance and best teaching from that aspect. So there was more of a optimistic outlook. However, to be taken that high up, and that's just another kind of a head scratcher. I don't know. It seems like I feel like the Raiders, they reacted to some moves or some picks that were made just prior to them. Some guys that they had, lined up, maybe that they're looking at or whatnot, and I think they reacted, ended up taking a lineman that, although he may be good and serviceable, I don't think it warranted that high of a pick, especially with some of the other guys, on the board still. So, the knock on Miller is that his footwork is, he doesn't have that quick step that you're going to need in the NFL. And it seems like an odd move. The Raiders, to their credit, were able to swing a trade and bring in Martavis Bryant from Pittsburgh, the wide receiver. So, it wasn't a complete dud of a draft day one. However, it just seems like it was an odd pick, and one that, perhaps there were some other better players at that position, or at least on in that lineman room that were available at that time. So, like I said, for every good pick and every great pick that we think is going to change the luck of one franchise, there are several other picks that, make you scratch your head. But in the end, 5 years from now, it could be reversed. And, Colton Miller could be the best lineman in the league, and Baker Mayfield could be leading the Browns to consecutive playoff appearances, or, well, okay, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you know what I'm saying? Really, it's still, at this point, it's just a crapshoot. But today, on April 27th, the Saints, the Raiders, and the Bills to some extent have, in my opinion, have made a questionable picks and moves. So what are your thoughts on the Raiders selection of Colton Miller? Because I know you looked at him a little bit when you were thinking about the Patriots.
Yeah, Miller was a guy that definitely, we had our eye on with FPC Patriots, and I think the actual club had their eye on him as well. You take a look at his size. He's 6'9". He's an immense guy. He's athletic, but I always found him to be a little more on the inconsistent side. He had some, penalty issues and whatnot that a lot of people had a marked against him a little bit. I think a lot of that was because of his size, and he's always exposed. So I think a lot of that came from that. I didn't think he was mid-first round. I really, really didn't. So I think that to take him with the number 15 overall pick, was a little bit aggressive. I think the Raiders, again, they zeroed in on him. They looked at him and said, this is a guy that can really shore up our offensive line, can be a big presence. And I think they basically said to themselves, okay, we know we traded down from 10 to 15, so we can, go ahead and select Miller with the number 15 pick. I think that the pick was too high. It's not necessarily the player that I have a problem with. I have necessarily a little bit of a beef into where he was taken. I think it was a little bit too aggressive, and I think it was more of a panic move than anything else. The team did get some draft capital, trading down with Arizona, so that is a plus. And like you said, the Bryant trade definitely kind of brought them back a little bit. I think if that was their only move yesterday with Miller, I think you'd see a lot more Raiders fans disappointed and really struggling to come to grips with that selection as their first round draft day selection. But again, like you said, he may end up doing an amazing job protecting Derek Carr and doing what he needs to do in Oakland. So we'll see. We'll see, but only time will tell. But I wasn't a fan of this pick, especially at number 15. I just think it was a little too high to take a player that I was reticent to put in the Patriots' first round plans, either at number 31 or especially at number 23. I figured that Miller would be a guy that would be probably a second-round talent if the Patriots decided not to address O-line in the first round, and we'll get to that in a minute. But in this respect, I just think it was a little too high for the caliber player. But best of luck to him. He's going to a good team. Obviously Gruden's going to inject a lot of life into the Raiders this year, just from his presence. Players would want to play for him just to have that experience. So, I'm sure he saw something in him, and best of luck to Colton on that.
Well, and that's that's the thing. By the time the Raiders were up to select, Quentin Nelson, the guard, went to Indianapolis, and I think he was the consensus top lineman. So he really wasn't, in contention there. A lot of people had possibly them targeting Roquan Smith, but he ended up going with the 8th overall pick to Chicago. So that kind of threw a little bump in the road for the Raiders. The 49ers took Mike McGlinchey, which seems like a little bit, I don't want to call it a reach, but, he went a little bit higher than expected. I don't think many people thought he was going to, jump into the top 10. But I think the 49ers, especially with the news this past week about Reuben Foster and how, a lot of what he was dealing with has come out to be, fabricated by the accuser. So their need for a running back all of a sudden is there is none. They've held on to Reuben Foster, and it proved to be a wise move because if they had cut him and this news come out, he would have already signed with the team. He would have already been on a roster. It's one of those things where the 49ers did their due diligence, didn't cut bait with the player too early, and it looks like he's going to get cleared. So it kind of freed up the 49ers to go out and maybe take a stab at getting the guy that could protect Jimmy G, because as we know, Jimmy G is a good quarterback, but he's the type of guy who's going to need to be protected, or he's just going to be another Tony Romo. If he's getting hit too much, he's a mobile quarterback. He's already shown a little bit of, I don't want to say a track history because there really is none, but there are concerns about how he is built and how he plays the game, whether or not he can stay healthy for an entire season. And as competitive and as ferocious as this division is, especially with the Rams adding guys like Ndamukong Suh and Aqib Talib and guys like that, you're going to need to protect your quarterback. So the 49ers go out and they get Mike McGlinchey, from Notre Dame, but thinking he's going to be the guy. So all of a sudden now the Raiders, coming up a few picks later, they're looking at not too much in the way of line depth. Their linebacker that they had their eyes on was gone. Guys like Vita Vea and Minkah Fitzpatrick were gone. So I think it was a bit of a reach, but in the end it could turn out to be a good, end up being a good grab for the Raiders. And, kind of just sticking a little bit on little bit on the lineman thing. When the Lions took Frank Ragnow, the center, I just laughed. Detroit Lions fans, welcome to the Patriot way, because that was
absolutely,
it was and it was such a Bill Belichick type. It was Bob Quinn, it was Matt Patricia, it was like that's what you come to expect. To me, that was like the trade or pick several years back, where it was just like, all right, there's all these players and they're taking who? Obviously for people who follow the draft, they know a little bit more about these players and aren't going to be so surprised at the pick. But maybe Lions fans that are experiencing this under a Patriot-like regime with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn and all them, this is how it's going to go. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, he could end up being the best pick of the first round, and that would probably shock no one. If Matt Patricia is anything like his former boss and the guy he's worked under for quite some time now. So when it happened, it was funny because there was a dead silence from the crowd. There was no reaction. It was just, all right, the Lions are taking center. We don't care. We don't care about the name. We don't care about who's on the board, what flashy defender from Alabama is on the board. It doesn't matter. We're taking this guy. He's a center. We love him. And I couldn't help but laugh and just, not in a haha sucks for you Lions way, just in a it reminded me so much of just like a Patriots pick. And
exactly. Yeah.
So
that's exactly what it was.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. That was.
Yeah.
That was
No. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, Ragnow especially, and we're actually hearing rumblings this morning. I don't know how true they are, but we're hearing some rumblings this morning that the Patriots may have been in some discussions to try to move up so they could get Ragnow. And it's interesting to think about whether or not that is true, whether or not that's kind of coming out to maybe help an old friend, kind of really shore up the pick and not be too criticized in his first major draft at the helm. But Detroit needed to get stronger in the middle. They did that by picking up Ragnow. I mean, he can, even if he plays guard for now and he moves to center later if needed, this is a very talented offensive lineman. He could end up being the best offensive lineman in the draft, eventually, if things play out the way they should. His draft stock raised dramatically over the last week, so he's going to move the line of scrimmage. He's going to give Matt Stafford a lot of protection that he does need. So I like the pick from Matt Patricia. It showed no fear, and it showed that he's going to be like his predecessor. Like you said, he's not going to draft for the flash. He's not going to draft even necessarily for the need, the immediate need. He's going to draft for the fit within his system and his vision. And no one does that better than Bill Belichick. And that pick, you hit the nail right on the head. That pick showed me that that's the mode that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are going to use in Detroit. So, yeah, I like that pick. A lot of people were going, who, what did they do, what's going on? Or, like you said, it was just like an apathetic response, like, oh, yeah, wow, what a surprise, they got a center, ooh-wee. All right, what's next? These picks are some of the ones that kind of, under the radar. What? and yeah, very good drop in. So I liked the Ragnow pick. Touching on what you had said before about McGlinchey, I was pretty high on Mike McGlinchey, and someone that I thought that the Patriots might target as an offensive tackle. I think the price that they paid for him essentially to draft him that high was a bit too high. But when you take a look at their needs, and like you said, I think you really said it very well when you said about Foster and the fact that a need for a linebacker necessarily wasn't as urgent as it had been before, because Foster looks like he's going to be back in San Francisco and probably with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think that is a scary thing for that defense. He's the type of player that, if motivated, can be a game changer on defense. So when you take a look at that, that really shows to me that their priority was to protect Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think they got a good guy that'll be able to do it. They may have found their quote-unquote Matt Light, a guy that could be a chameleon for them and play a couple of different positions in their offensive line, but someone that's always going to have Jimmy G's back. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. So I know there was a lot of vitriol about that pick last night. 49ers fans, take a deep breath, relax, take a look at what you're getting. I don't think you're going to be as disappointed once the season begins as maybe you are right now that they didn't go for the flashy pick in the top 10. Maybe he went a little bit higher than he should have, but McGlinchey's a solid lineman, and I think the 49ers will be glad they made that pick.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like it's not flashy. Like generally, playing the line, it's not a flashy position, especially the offensive line. You get some studs and star players on the defensive line, but the offensive line, it's your quote unquote blue collar, salt of the earth type players that go out there. They don't get many stats, they don't get many accolades, and you probably couldn't pick them out of a lineup if you had to choose. So fans, especially ones that may not follow the game as as much as the next person or someone like us or the people that we work with, they're not going to know that look, you can have this great team, you can have all these flashy offensive players, but if you got no one to protect the guy who distributes the ball, it doesn't matter. I mean, look at the Seahawks. They put all this money into this great defense, and they've had some talented offensive players, but they were paying $20 a year for an offensive line that couldn't protect Russell Wilson, and we saw him get sacked more than any quarterback last season. So it's not the sexiest of picks, and especially for a guy that a lot of people were kind of projecting as possibly, falling out of the first round or being at the very best a high first round pick, or what I mean. So it's it take a little while, and like I said, 49ers fans aren't going to be running to the stores to pick up Mike McGlinchey jerseys. I'm sure they haven't even started making them yet, but they can rest assured that this is going to be a safe pick, and these are the type of picks that winning franchises make. And kind of tying all together into a little bit of a segue into getting into the Patriots a little bit. There were some reports, and there are still reports this morning, that the 49ers and the Patriots are talking about tackle Trent Brown, the former 2015 7th round pick. So now, obviously, with the 49ers drafting McGlinchey, the need for Brown, he's expendable. So the Patriots obviously have a good relationship with John Lynch and the 49ers, obviously. And,
right.
They're never shy from adding linemen, and that will segue us right into their 23rd overall pick, which was Isaiah Wynn, which everyone obviously was expecting, even when, and like, again, I say that with a little bit of sarcasm. Well, especially since Lamar, I feel like Lamar Jackson hype, and when he was just sitting there at 23, I think a lot of people expected him to go. When he was sitting there again at 31, again, a lot of people expected him to go. But once again, the Patriots, they ignored all that, and they took a lineman, which we both of us, were pretty much in consensus that they were likely going to hold on to at least one of those first-round picks, and one of those picks are likely lineman. And you get a guy, he joins David Andrews as a former Georgia Bulldog on that offensive line, and a guy that could, under the development of Dante Scarnecchia, and a line that, despite how fans react, there's a lot of depth on this offensive line. I know Nate Solder's not there anymore, but we talk about Antonio Garcia, we talk about Marcus Cannon and guys like that that didn't play at all last year, or in Marcus Cannon's case, for the most part, most of the season he didn't play. You add these guys to this line, you go through this development, you go through this process, and all of a sudden you have a pretty damn good line lining up in front of Tom Brady every week, and all these questions about what are they going to do without Nate Solder, what's going to happen here. I think it's just it was a good move, because I think we expected it. We expected them not to react. They're not going to get emotional. They're not going to see some of these guys. We looked at other defensive players that might fall to them. Like maybe they make a jump on this. Maybe they move up and take a receiver. Maybe Calvin Ridley was available at 23 and they didn't take him. So they just stuck to their game plan. And I think their game plan was we need to start building from the inside out. And, you add an offensive lineman, and then they came back with the 31st overall pick and picked another Georgia Bulldog and a Dion Lewis replacement in Sony Michel. So, it's not exactly how we expected. I think we both kind of thought maybe it was going to be offensive line, maybe a defensive player. But again, this is another, you look at it and you're like, yeah, this sounds about right for Bill Belichick and the Patriots and how they operate. They clearly, teams from the outside look at it and say, well, they need a lot of help on defense. They gave up 41 points in the Super Bowl, and they obviously go out and draft 2 offensive players with their first 2 picks. So,
right.
It was an interesting day in Patriots land, and one that, like I said, at this point, I just defer to what the Patriots do. And like I said, I expected them to take a lineman with their first pick, or at least one of those first 2 picks. So I'm happy with that. I'm glad that they had depth on that. And I'm intrigued to see Sony Michel out there, the guy who averaged 7 yards per carry and is skilled catching passes out of the backfield, and one for especially his size is a good blocker. So I mean those are all the check boxes you look for when you're looking for a running back for the Patriots. So it's we could fans are that's the crazy thing about fans. And I made a comment about this last night, and you already have the who's and the what, and what the hell are they doing, and this, that, and the other. I can't believe, a lot of these guys are maybe buying into the whole Bill Belichick sabotaging the pay, which is, like you said, we only have a 2-hour limit on the show, so I don't even want to start getting into that because we would just go on. But, essentially these fans are just, they're complaining to complain, and it makes me laugh because the more I see that, the more I know that these picks are going to be they're going to be knocked out of the park, and they're going to be great picks for the Patriots. And Sony Michel is going to end up leading the team in receptions next year, and no one's going to be thinking about it. So, for everyone that was complaining, this is what I heard.
Oh, bitch.
Any chance I can use that drop, I love that Grandpa Simpson's drop. I will use it. But I do feel that towards, especially Patriots fans, because we deal with it on a daily basis. Bill Belichick knows more than all of us. He knows more than me. He knows more than you. He knows more than Mike Mayock and all these talking heads on TV. He knows more than them. It's just simple as that. So if he picks this guy, if he makes this move, if he drafts an offensive lineman in the first round, guess what? I'm going to go with his track record, because his track record says Matt Light, Logan Mankins, so on and so forth. So, like I said, that's Nate Solder. So, like I said, every time they draft an offensive lineman in the first round, they turn into a can't-lose player. Because, and I'm pretty sure we heard that about every single one of those linemen when they left. Matt Light retired. How are you going to replace them? Okay. Who the hell is Logan Mankins? What's going to happen when you trade him? Well, they're just going to go on and win a Super Bowl that year. What are you going to do with Nate Solder? How can you let Nate Solder walk? Well, he got too expensive. He was 33, and the Patriots were looking to get younger. So there you go. So I rambled on long enough. Mike, your thoughts?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of, I wouldn't call it rambling. I'd call it educated discourse, my friend. In any case, I like both picks. And I did right from the get-go. Isaiah Wynn is not a guy that was on a lot of people's radar when it came to the Patriots needing an offensive tackle. First of all, a lot of people had him listed as a guard. And that really, it always makes me laugh when you hear about a guy and you say, "Oh, well, he's short. Or he's small." Guy's 6'3", 313 pounds. I don't know of another world other than WWE or NFL where that's considered a small guy. But he does have a different body type than usually you would see for a guard. But he's a technically sound player, and that to me is really what drew the Patriots to him. Dante Scarnecchia has one of the best reputations in the business. He endorsed Wynn right off the bat and even before the draft, and that really goes a long way toward people should be feeling that this is a solid pick. Even Jeff Schwartz, who works in the media now, who's a former Giants offensive lineman, he endorsed the pick with authority last night and really said that this was a great pick for New England. So I do. I like it. The Patriots had the need at left tackle. I think Wynn can fill that void, but even if they choose to use him in a different capacity, he's a chameleon when it comes to the offensive line. So he can play a number of different positions on there. And Bill Belichick last month addressed the media, and I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said he knows more than all of us. The line that I like to use is Bill Belichick has probably forgot more about football than you or I or anybody else will ever even learn. He knows what he's doing, and he said right off the bat that the Patriots don't, like I said about the 49ers earlier, the Patriots do not draft for flash. They don't even necessarily draft for need. They draft on the ability to fit the player into the system that they want to employ and their ability to mold him into the player that they want to be. And I think that's why you saw Isaiah Wynn go at number 23. He did have the surgery on his labrum, and he did mention that to the media last night in the conference call, that he did have that surgery. He did say that he'll be ready for June's minicamp. But news out of the team that I'm getting is that the team is not going to rush him. Wynn is a tough guy. He can play through the injury, but they want him to be fully healed. So I expect Wynn to be absolutely ready when it comes time for training camp, and I think that he's this rare type of player that could play all 5 spots on the line if need be. So this is a good value for the Pats. Again, offensive lineman at number 23 is not going to win you any style points amongst the fans. You saw it last night. You put it out there, and I thought that was perfect on Twitter. All the who's and the who is this guy? What did they do? Typical Belichick. We don't know who he is. This is a good opportunity for fans to kind of take a step back again, take a look at what they've got, and the value that they have in Isaiah Wynn, I think, is going to be great. I think he's really going to be a game changer on that offensive line. When it comes to Sony Michel is a guy that I've actually had my eye on since late January, early February, and right after the Super Bowl loss, I did a piece for Full Press on potential targets that the Patriots might be looking at. And on that list of potential targets was Sony Michel. He is the type of running back that Bill Belichick absolutely loves. He is really a real dynamic threat at that spot. His health is always a concern. He does have an injury history. The condition of his knee gave teams some concerns. You saw a lot of people mention that last night, that, oh, well, his knee might be this, his knee might be that. The Patriots don't have a whole lot of fear when it comes to that. They place their priority on football character. Both of these guys, coming from Georgia, they have their leaders. They're highly respected among their teammates. I'd also like to point out that they were roommates at Georgia. They weren't just teammates, but they were roommates. So there's a familiarity there between these two guys. There is a culture question right now where it results with the Patriots. I think what they want to do is restore some normalcy, and guys coming in that are rookies, for lack of a better term, that don't necessarily have the NFL experience. If you can bring in guys that are going to be able to fit that system, fit the mold, but also fit the culture that you want to bring in, it's a win-win situation with everything that they have. So I like the addition of Sony Michel. I think he's got that big play dimension, the capability. He's capable of receiving out of the backfield. He's an amazing runner when it comes to cuts. He does have a lot of Dion Lewis in him, and I think that is one of the big reasons why they chose to bring him aboard as well. So I do like these two picks. I don't have a problem with either one of them, and I think the Patriots had themselves a pretty good draft last night.
To me, it kind of looks, it feels like Georgia is becoming the new Rutgers for the Patriots, because you think about it now, it's like, you remember, nearly 10 years ago now, you have Devin McCourty and Duron Harmon and Logan Ryan and those guys all from Rutgers. Now you look at the Patriots offense and you have, Isaiah Wynn, you have Sony Michel, you have Malcolm Mitchell, you have David Andrews, all former Georgia Bulldogs, all acquired in the last, 3 to 4 years, whether undrafted in David Andrews' case or drafted high, in the draft a couple years ago in Malcolm Mitchell's case. So, the Patriots tend to do this. They latch on to, they draft certain players. That's why it's like you look at a guy like Rashaan Evans and he went, and that's the thing. And Parker Hurley did a great job of bringing this up last night when we did him and Brandon did their live show recapping the first round last night. He mentioned the Titans moving up right ahead of the Patriots at 22 to take Rashaan Evans. And when I saw that, I was like, basically like Vrabel, like Newman, like that just had like, I had a feeling that could have been a possibility too. An Alabama linebacker sitting right there for the Patriots. I feel like that was a move that they would have considered possibly taking him at that position and then waiting to take Isaiah Wynn 31st overall. But Mike Vrabel.
I agree, by the way.
Traded. Yeah, it was just.
Yeah,
one
I'm
of
in full
those
agreement
things
on it.
you're like, that Mike Vrabel and the Titans, but and it's a great pick for the Titans. But it kind of goes on that theme where like you can. In hindsight, you look back and like, oh, well, duh. I mean, the Patriots, they like certain players from certain, programs depending on the position. And so far, it looks like offense is, Georgia's the go-to place, whether it's on the line or, skill players. So I'm excited and I'm interested to see how the development of these players work out. And while you were talking, I was kind of just scrolling through some comments on a website just about the Isaiah Wynn pick, and it's exactly what you expected. It's a mix of casual Patriots fans and Patriots haters, mocking and laughing at the picks. One saying like, how do you pick them when there's two receivers available? And I laughed because I'm like, well, clearly nothing about this team, because like to me, if they would have, the biggest shock to me is if they would end up drafting like Calvin Ridley. Like, really? No, I would have been upset. Yeah, he would have been a skilled player, but I would have been upset with that move because they don't need more receivers. People keep pointing to Danny Amendola, but it's like, guys, he was a fifth or sixth receiver on this team when this team was healthy. So, yeah, we're going to miss, the team's going to miss some of his clutch play and ability, especially in the playoffs where it really stood out. But be realistic here. I mean, the guy was nothing more than a fifth or sixth receiver on this team. And I'm not being like heartless or anything. I'm just realistically looking from a team aspect. The Patriots aren't going to, panic when they lose that type of guy. And they're certainly not going to take a wide receiver in the first round with their highest pick, after they felt the need that they needed. They could, get rid of a guy like Brandon Cooks because they have Edelman coming back. They have Malcolm Mitchell. They signed Jordan Matthews. They have Cordero Patterson and Chris Hogan still in the mix. And, obviously Gronk's coming back despite some quote unquote, uncertainty around that. So, it's funny to me when I see that, and then like I said, it just makes me feel better about the offensive line pick. And like you said, kind of tooting your own horn there and saying how you're talking about Sony Michel, and you're right on point. I mean, he's in the bit of a mold of a Deion Lewis, and I'm not going to say he is Deion Lewis because there is no other Deion Lewis. The thing
right?
He
no,
can
absolutely.
yeah, when he's on top of his game, when he's healthy. He does some great things, some incredibly athletic things that other players can't do. So he's not going to be that guy. But you put Michelle into this room with James White, and I don't know how long Mike Gillisley is going to be there, but Brandon Bolden and it's a solid room with good playmakers on an offense that it's a well-oiled machine. So, you're not bringing him in to be the every down back. You're not bringing him in to change the culture of the offense. He's going to be a complementary player, and you're going to see how he can grow over the course of the next few years. Because if you remember, James White got selected. No one really knew him until 2 years into his career when he finally, started to step up. And then obviously he had a big Super Bowl, and the rest is history. So, you never really know. I'm not going to get too high or too low with these picks. I just know that I would have been upset if there was a wide receiver taken with the 23rd overall pick. I think that the Patriots had their eye on Rashaan Evans, but Mike Vrabel swooped in and took him because I think you could have gotten Michelle in the second round, especially with guys still on the board. But that's the thing with the Patriots. They're not worried about how other teams or fans or players or whoever perceive what they, how they pick. They're going to pick based on what they need. They don't really care. Like, okay, well, Rashaan Evans is off the board, so we're just going to take Isaiah Wynn because we need a tackle and we think he's the best available, and we still have our other first round picks, so we really want Michel. We're not going to wait till the second round. Now we'll take him, and we have 2 second round picks. So, the way they do business isn't quite the same as how some of these other teams do, especially ones that have, been perennially, you know what? I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word because it's not working today. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. It happens. It's like rural. Like I can never.
You're all good, my friend.
Some teams that are consistently picking at the top of the draft, they have more pressure and they tend to, this theme we keep going back to is they draft emotionally and they react to what happens in the moment, and the Patriots don't do that. The Patriots, obviously, they reacted, like I said, I assumed that they were looking at Evans. I thought that if he was there at 23, he'd probably be the pick. However, that was not the case. It didn't work out, so they just moved on to the next guy on their board, without saying like, oh, well, we can't take, Isaiah Wynn here, so let's reach for something else because the name's flashier. So, like I said, overall, I think it was a good draft. It was a pretty Patriot-like draft. Nothing too flashy. Nothing. The Lamar Jackson's not joining the team. That distraction. As intriguing as it would have been to have him on there, because a lot of people consider him to be a very talented player. You're basically setting yourself up for Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady talk from now until September. So we're not going to have that. Fortunately, unfortunately, depends, on how you look at it. I'm sure it would have been great for us to talk and write about. However, as fans, you just want to kind of have them focus on business. Now, that opens the door to see what happens in this, in the second round, because obviously the Patriots have 2 second round picks again. And of course, this draft is, deep in defensive talent. So you could see them focusing more on defensive side moving forward into day 2 and day 3. What are your thoughts in general about the second round coming up for both the Patriots and just, for other teams kind of sitting there in the hunt and some of these players that are still on the board?
Well, I think in terms of surprises, I think the fact that Harold Landry is still there in the to be had in the second round is a bit of a surprise. I know that the Patriots could definitely use him on the edge in terms of shoring up the defense, which I expect that to be a big part of what they do today. And I think that they will in rounds 2 and 3. I think you'll see them address some defensive needs. At least one definitely will have to be a defensive need. But for the Patriots, in the final mock draft that I completed a couple of days ago for Full Press, the 2 picks that I had for the Patriots in the second round are still very much on the board. I had them going with Lorenzo Carter, and I also had them going with quarterback Kyle Lauletta, who's been really kind of bandied about amongst being like a Belichick type gem because of his background in lacrosse, because of his background with the U.S. military, and there's so many factors there that just really like make him the perfect Belichickian pick. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, it would be interesting if Lorenzo Carter did fall to the Patriots at number 43 overall in the second round, and they ended up getting 3 Georgia Bulldogs with the first 3 picks that they have in the NFL draft. Like you said, I mean, that would be Rutgers all over again. It would be really like, well, at least fleecing Georgia. But, I mean, he would be a great addition, I think, to what they do. He possesses the height, the athleticism that would really make him a formidable pass rusher for the Patriots on the edge. It's no secret that the Patriots did struggle in the pass rush last season. I don't think the sky is falling as much as fans would like it to believe. I think the fact that you do have Trey Flowers coming back, you absolutely have, Marquise Flowers coming back, you have Derek Rivers coming back, Dietrich Wise has a year under his belt. These guys with the seasoning and the talent can really kind of bring that together. You add Carter into that mix, and all of a sudden, really becomes interesting. And don't forget Adrian Claiborne too. He's coming into to this defense as well. So, that could be a potential target. When it comes to the quarterbacking position, I do think the Patriots addressed that in the draft this year. I can't see them going the undrafted free agent, or I can't see them going the straight free agent route. I know they have Brian Hoyer on the depth chart and will for this season, and barring any unforeseen circumstances. But I like Lauletta. I think that his performance at the Senior Bowl this year, winning the MVP, really increased his draft stock. And I worry about him being available at 63. I think if he's there, I think the Patriots definitely have to pull the trigger on that move. So it'll be interesting to see, but there's a lot of good players out there. Cornerback Josh Jackson, a lot of people thought he would be off the board within the first round. He's still out there. So, there's still a lot of different opportunities for the Patriots to make that selection. So, yeah, some of those are people that I have my eye on for possible targets for the Patriots. As far as players that are out there for in terms of pure talent, guys that are out there for the taking. I mean, there's a lot of guys. You mentioned Darius Geis earlier. Cortland Sutton, I think, will be snagged up pretty quickly. An athletic, great open field wide receiver. He might make some sense for the Patriots. If he's around, you might pull the trigger on drafting him. Receiver. You never know. I mean, that's the thing about the Patriots is they have a draft board that's based on fit, not based on best available, and I think that's a lot of what they're going to do. So they'll take the best available fit. I think that's the best way for the Patriots to put out there. But Maurice Hurst is one guy, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Will Hernandez, I was a little surprised that he didn't go in the first round. Mentioned Josh Jackson earlier. Mason Rudolph is another quarterback that really is still, I think, the best talented quarterback that's still available out there. I don't know if he'll be available at 43. If he is, that could be an interesting pick. Rudolph has been someone that has been kind of tied to the Patriots, not directly from the team, but a lot of analysts have speculated as to whether or not he could be the fit that the Patriots need him to be. So there are a lot of guys out there. This is going to be interesting, today. Today is really my favorite day of the draft, the round 2, the round 3, because you really see the steals. You really try to see the wheeling and dealing going on. In terms of hype, in terms of pure excitement, nothing beats draft day 1. But for the real football analysts, and like you, like me, we really get into the meat and potatoes of the NFL draft. This is a great day for us. So I'm definitely going to have my eyes and ears open all day long to see what could happen as a result. But those are the guys that I would have my eye on and see them kind of go off the board pretty quickly. And of course Landry, that's a big question mark. I know our good friend Ben Pfeiffer, who runs the Colts page. I wanted to send medical attention to his house last night. We were a little bit worried about what was going to happen if the Colts did not somehow pick up Harold Landry. They may get their wish. Him coming in, they have 3 picks available in these rounds today. So they may end up getting their wish, and he may end up going to Indy. But yeah, should be a fun day. Should be a really fun day. There's a lot of high-quality prospects still available today, so definitely looking forward to it.
No, and I think you kind of nailed it. I think for the Patriots in particular, quarterback watch is on at this point. I think is more realistic in the middle rounds. You mentioned Kyle Lauletta and Mason Rudolph, and those are kind of the guys that always seemed like the more appropriate fit for the Patriots and how, what they can do. And you look at it now and you try to think of some of the teams that could possibly be in the market for that quarterback. And, Miami was kind of rumored, questions about Tannehill. The Saints could surely still go in and draft a quarterback. Obviously the Patriots. And, other teams, maybe even like teams like the Redskins, who, just acquired Alex Smith and have him for 4 years, but maybe they look at a day 2 quarterback and add him. So there's thinning competition for quarterbacks. So I think the Patriots are really in a good position to be able to get that. but there's also so many other talented players that, if, like you said, if Harold Landry somehow falls to 43, it's going to be hard to. It's going to be hard for the Patriots to pass that up. But then again, that's assuming we have an idea of what the Patriots are thinking. So,
right,
it's going to be interesting. Yeah, and that's that's a real big caveat about all this is like we really don't. We have no idea what they're thinking. I mean, for all we know, they had Isaiah Wynn circled the entire time, and they knew that he was going to be their top pick. They knew he was going to be available. They didn't try to trade. They didn't try to. They knew 23 was going to be high enough. So, it's just. In the end, it's just a crapshoot, and it's fun to watch. And like you said, when it gets down to the second, third round, and you start seeing some, really strategic moves and picks, that's when it really gets fun. And we're certainly excited to have that all unfold today, and then. Then we'll have months to talk about it with training camp and all that. So I know you're excited for it. I know I'm excited for it. I'm getting geared up to actually talk about real football and not speculative situations. So do you have any closing thoughts before we end this show and rest our voices and eyes before we get geared up for round 2 later tonight?
No, I mean, I think what we're looking at is exactly what you said. I think that this now becomes real football. I think up until from the time that the Super Bowl ends to the time that the draft occurs, even though it's NFL free agency, it's still very much like I want to say like a pseudo fantasy type job to be an analyst for the NFL and for the teams that you cover. And I think now what we're doing is we're getting into that, for lack of a better term, that meat and potatoes. You're getting into the really juicy stuff when it comes to actual football and putting the teams out there on the field. So I love it. Draft weekend is always excellent. I've had a blast working with everybody at Full Press Coverage over the course of the last few weeks and months leading up to the draft. Really has been great. You mentioned the mock draft that we had on Sunday. That was a lot of fun. We really, I think we nailed a few picks. I think we did some good work there, and I encourage anyone that would want to, after the draft is over, to go back and check it out and see how we did. Yeah, we missed some, but I think you'll find that that's really the case across the board when it comes to analysts. The draft is never an exact science. I think we did the best we could. Kudos to Parker and Brandon for stepping it up last night and really, not worrying about sleep deprivation at that point and really going out and giving, I think, a great, performance in terms of bringing everyone their opinions as to what happened with the draft and kind of get everyone's the finger on everyone's pulse from day one. In terms of day 2 and of course tomorrow, we're looking forward to it. When the draft boards are all set, you can definitely count on Full Press Coverage for some great coverage. Really, I think from top to bottom, you've seen teams that have. I looked this morning at a lot of the recaps and day 2 projections. So I encourage everyone visit fullpresscoverage.com for some great draft coverage. You won't be sorry that you did that. Everybody on our staff is working really hard to bring you the best coverage we possibly can for the draft. Just enjoy the weekend because it really is a fun time, not only to see who your team might pick, but if there are any trades. I mean, we as Patriots fans remember this draft weekend was the weekend where one Randy Moss found his way to New England and no one was really sure what to expect, but he ended up coming in and being one of the most dynamic players in the team's history. A lot of people forget about Corey Dillon as well. This was the weekend where he found his way to New England and found his way to a Super Bowl title. So a lot of interesting things can happen between now and the end of the draft tomorrow. So I think that's the perfect way to sum it up. Now we're getting into now it's on. Now we're getting into where the big boys play, and it should be fun.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it, and in the back of my mind, as you are, we're both anxiously awaiting Game 1 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I couldn't. I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I didn't mention that. Which starts for the Bruins tomorrow. So I know you're excited about that. It's a sports-filled weekend, and it's certainly not going to slow down anytime soon. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, NHL really playoffs, NBA playoffs. There's some great coverage, from on both ends. You're obviously doing an excellent job with the NHL page, my friend. Want to give you major props, and our writing staff with the NHL. I'm privileged to be a part of that and to be a member of that staff as well, and some of the great content that's being published. Also, I would like to point out that my prognostication of the Vegas Golden Knights seems to be doing pretty well right now. I had them win the series as well. Big win last night. I'm calling it right now. If the Bruins and the Golden Knights end up hooking up in the Stanley Cup, we say, you know what? Get the powers that be, get them on the phone, and we do a live broadcast from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, when the Bruins, if the Bruins and the Golden Knights hook up the Stanley Cup Finals. I think that would be an excellent show. I think a lot of people would tune into that, my friend. But anyway, okay, I just woke up, so.
Honestly, it's remarkable, and I personally, like I've mentioned it a couple times on the show before, and hockey holds a very, very close, dear spot in my heart, and it always will be, because it was the sport I grew up playing, and I attribute a lot of what I learned throughout playing hockey and all that to how I am in life and all that stuff. So I really, hockey is special to me. From being able to watch what's happened in Vegas, and obviously I'm a Bruins fan, a diehard Bruins fan, but watching what's happened in Vegas is it's incredible. And it last night they opened this series up with a huge 7-0 win over the Sharks, and I like to listen to a lot of hockey shows on the NHL Network radio and all that, so I get to listen to a lot of the national views and all that, and there's been so many people. There's one guy in particular that called into one of the shows I was listening to. He's never watched hockey, not once in his entire life. He's from Vegas. Got into it this year because, the way he said it, it's like, hey, it's their first professional team. What the hell? I'll give it a shot. And the guy is hooked. He has season tickets. He's a diehard, and it's like that's what's awesome about all this is that a team has been able to capture a city that just has been lacking professional sports identity, and if you want to tie it into the unfortunate tragedy that happened, it helped. We saw it here in Boston firsthand, 5 years ago, how the city rallied around the Red Sox and really used them as a in Houston too, just last season with the Astros, they use a terrible tragedy, but then they galvanize the city or the state or whatever by the success of the team, and the team plays off that. And, it's hard not to think that has something to do with it as well, with Vegas and just what they've been able to do for that city. And it's just unbelievable. And it's awesome. And it's one of the reasons why sports are, and what it can do beyond just the entertainment aspect, but just, it's great to see a team that, was just a thought a year ago, be this incredibly talented team and all that. So, but I'm getting off on a whole different topic. We'll perhaps we'll start doing a hockey specific show, because I can talk for 2 hours about hockey most days. So
no, definitely, man. Sounds good.
Before I do that, I do just want to say thank you to everyone out there that was listening, and we really appreciate the support. And we're going to be right back with you guys next week on Friday. We're going to recap the entire draft. We'll probably talk a little bit more about the second round of the playoffs and hockey, and we'll kind of the dust will be settling from this draft and whatever that happened from now until next week. And so once again, I just want to say thank you very much, and you can obviously keep up with all the great content that's coming out today. I've already seen a few posts go up online as we were talking on fullpresscoverage.com. So make sure if you're out there, check it all out. Check out all the draft grades and profiles and projections and all that stuff that we have out there. You can follow the main account. It's at FPC_NFL. To keep up with all our podcasts and radio shows, you can follow us at Full Press Radio. And then, of course, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at IGLEN31. And as always, you can follow Mike. It's at MDABATEFPC. And, of course, all the other accounts part of the umbrella of Full Press Coverage. So, once again, thank you everyone for listening, and we really enjoy your support, and we look forward to seeing you next week. So, final word, Mike. Have a great Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about the draft in the next 48 hours. So, I hope you have a great rest of your Friday afternoon.
Absolutely, and wishing all the teams that pick today in the NFL draft today and tomorrow, wishing them a little bit of excellence of execution. And you like how I kind of tied it all together there?
Yeah.
Quoting the great Bret the Hitman Hart, who kicked us off with that great theme music. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy. Ian, thank you as always. It's always a pleasure to share the microphone with you, my friend. Look forward to doing it again next week.
Always. See you next week.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.